Hello my friends and welcome, my name is Dennis and this is the latest update from Ukraine. In this video we're gonna speak about the Ukrainian advancement in Kursk oblast and how the Ukrainian army was able to encircle the part of the Ahmad battalion. We're gonna speak about the probability of the attack on Belgorod oblast, the big Russian provocation in Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, the strike on Moscow's military airfield Chkalsky, and many more. So let's go. At first let's check out the latest military map update from the Kursk oblast. I used the maps presented by the Miko 73 analytic. He's monitoring all of the publics, all the channels, and he provides a very detailed data about the case. Because from the deep state military maps we have just the update for the first day. But Ukraine in Kursk is almost for 1 week. And despite the Russian claims that they were able to stop the Ukrainian army movement towards north, no, Ukraine still is able to get more ground. However, I may admit that the pace of the Ukrainian advancement slowed down gradually. For today, Ukraine took just this part of the ground together with Novoivanovka village. But as you may see, the gray area is kind of big. Also, we have the confirmation that Russia started its counterattack. It wants to deblocade Sudzha. Sudzha is now partially encircled by Ukrainian army, almost encircled. However, this Russian counteroffensive wasn't successful yet. I switched to the Google Maps to present you more information, so this is Sudzha, and I think that the main attack vector for Ukraine is now towards Kornivo. Before, Ukraine sent just a small assault group towards Kornivo, but there was resistance, so Ukraine decided to seize this operation, taking this city so far. However, Ukraine started to build the robust positions near Kornivo. Today, the Ukrainian armed forces advanced towards Zhuravli village and took it under control. The world press says that Ukraine took control over the part of the Kursk region for a very long time. It doesn't want to get out from the area. The Ukrainian army built significant robust defense lines. And according to the report from the Institute for the Study of War, Ukrainian forces have advanced in Kursk region despite Russian claims of stabilizing the situation. So still Ukraine has the advantage in this region. Guys, if you want to support the job that I do daily on YouTube, you might do it on Patreon. The link for it is located in the video description just below. Thank you so much for your kind support. Meanwhile, Russia starts to send some of the reinforcements from the close directions. We're speaking about the northern part of Kharkiv, so they've took some of their forces from the place as well as from the Kupiansk direction. So far they are not touching the eastern front where Russia still has the advantage. They think that after all they might cope with a new front line on the Russian territory. But something tells me that it's not gonna happen very fast, and Ukraine actually has the probability to advance even further, maybe not even in Kursk, but in Belgorod. Well, we know that a couple of days ago Ukraine has already taken one of the Russian settlements in Belgorod Oblast. There was almost no resistance and the Ukrainian army is presented out there, but Ukraine, we know it for sure, is gathering forces for one more possible big strike, and Russia knows about it. So today the governor of the Belgorod Oblast has announced the evacuation of one of the districts of the oblast, which is bordering Ukraine. And this morning there were already fights reported in Kalatilovka village of the Russian Federation, which is bordering Ukraine. The Kalatilovka is located over here. It's not the place where the Porous village was taken by Ukraine. Well, actually Kalatilovka is not that far away from the Kursk oblast. Here's the border between those regions, Belgorod and Kursk. In general, it's quite a good area for any sort of the advancements because, again, there are not many rivers, not many hills. Like, for example, we may see in this place, so Ukrainian armed forces, mobile forces, are free to act on the vast areas. We'll see if it is the beginning of one more big attack very soon. But the local authorities are really concerned about the case, so they've started the evacuation. It is something new because in Kursk region no evacuation was announced. Russia is now using the term of voluntarily evacuation, voluntarily. So no one is forcing you to leave your homes, but if you don't like to be in war, Putin will pay you just $100 for that, that's it. And we're gonna speak more about this case later in this video. Right, more about the Sudzha city. Still there are some of the Russian forces presented. They're encircled already. They don't want to surrender for now, but they will have no other choice. Because in the same city, Ukraine was able to capture miraculously the Ahmad battalion, the part of it. Guys, I just can't show you the full video on this platform, but I publish everything on my Telegram channel, so I highly recommend you to go to the video description and subscribe for my Telegram. It is for free, and there I share many of the posts about the situation in Ukraine, including all of those videos, combat images, and many more. However, I try to filter the gore content myself, so we are not maniacs, right? Just the information which has some of the weight, plus those videos are shared over there. And here we see many of the Ahmad soldiers, many of them were captured. This guy is even allowed to smoke a cigarette. Well, maybe that is why he was captured in particular, because it's better run, not to smoke. What is interesting that, for example, this Kadyrov soldier was wearing Stefano Ricci sport jacket similar to this one, and here you can see the average price for the new model. Well, I guess that in the standard Russian uniform you look not so great in TikTok. And you know, I was able to find really a TikTok channel of Ahmad battalion, or maybe it's just the channel which shares their videos. What I may say that those TikTokers are the best equipped battalion in the Russian army. And on my Telegram, I shared the video of the ambushed Russian convoy, and there were many of the average Russian soldiers, and they wore a simple Russian standard equipment, very simple boots, very simple uniform. This is the Russian army as it is, the forces which always fight behind the front lines, which always run, have the best equipment. But the Russian conscripts who were at the edge of the Kursk operation, trying to secure the Russian border, they had nothing really. Just a very, very simple equipment. And there are now some internal clashes between Ahmad battalion, Kadyrovites, and the Russian military command. Some of the Z bloggers start to accuse Ahmad for leaving the positions and even for negotiating with the Ukrainian side of some sort of the peace agreement that Ukrainians will not fire towards Ahmad and Ahmad will leave the positions. But the commander of the Ahmad battalion started to accuse the Russian command and the Russian commanders on the place who were incompetent stopping Ukrainian army. So they left their positions and now they blame the Russian generals. And those Kadyrovites who were captured by Ukraine, they were hiding in one of the buildings. The building was in the Suja city, so they tried to get out from the place, but they hadn't had enough time. But the rest of the Ahmad battalion did it on time. So it's kind of interesting to see those arguing between the Russian command and Ahmad. Even now, then there is just a light movement of Ukrainian army into the Russian territory. They start to disagree on something, they start to blame each other. Actually, it creates the good perspectives for the possible future operations in Russia. There is no unity even among the Russian forces, which is great. If you think that I'm making up the situation, well, actually not. The commander of the Ahmad battalion really told that the commanders of the Russian army lied to everyone, and they got themselves into the trap. Yeah, I know that the quality of the screenshot is not good over here. I did it for purpose, just to avoid restrictions, where here Ukraine captured some of the conscripts. Yes, it happened again and happening almost every day. After the TikTok Kadyrov warriors, the conscripts are the most valuable POVs for Ukraine for the possible future exchanges, because the conscripts are not voluntarily sent to fight in Ukraine, and those are very young soldiers, 18, 19 years old. They have mothers and relatives who will look for them. Those are not the Russian ex-prisoners or something, so there will be some of the tensions in the Russian society if conscripts remain in custody in Ukraine. But after all, the Ahmad soldiers are the best of the best for exchange. Russia exchanges those very fast, so obviously in the nearby future Ukraine will get its soldiers from the Russian prisons. And this is the latest information about the Suja city coming from the Russian Z channels. They say that for sure, based on the facts and information at my disposal, that Suja is unfortunately under the control of the enemies. It means that Ukraine took the city under control. It's the biggest settlement in that place. They say that the enemy, so Ukraine, is bringing the heavy equipment into the city. And they call to recognize the sad reality of the situation to make the faster action or solution to the problem. But what is the solution Russia has? Well, they send some of the equipment, heavy equipment like tanks, and this new T-80 tank modification BVM was captured by Ukrainian soldiers. Judging on the video, our guys did it using Humvee. Well, I think that the tank was hit by Ukrainian side, maybe by the FPV drone. The Russian crew evacuated the vehicle and ran away, and Ukraine just delivered the new crew using Humvee. At the same time, Russia also deploys their T-62M tanks. Those are very old, however, a little modernized. From what I see, Russia also hesitates to use their aviation fully. Well, maybe after some of their helicopters were just shut down, they don't want to use those as before. On the Russian media, however, they show some of the videos of how they use, for example, Mi-28 attack helicopter, saying that it works against Ukrainian forces in Kursk, but in reality it's the different region. It is an old video with Donetsk region. The same goes with this aviation gliding bomb. The information was shared by the Russian Defense Ministry of how they used the FAB-3000 in Kursk, but actually it's an old video dated around 1 month ago. Alright, and according to the latest information, Ukraine went to Martinovka village and to Hordiivka village. Awesome. One of the reasons of why Ukrainian army is so effective in Kursk is that because it was prepared to use many of the drones. Like for example, this big Baba Yaga drone dropped some of the mortar mines on the Russian checkpoint, completely demolishing it. And here you may even see the Russian defense line, some of the Dragon Ts. Plus, Ukraine uses many of the FPV drones to target the Russian vehicles, Russian infantry, and the Russian surveillance drones. And you know, guys, according to the last information, the Ukrainian armed forces were spotted in Gyry village, quite far away from Sudzha and from the Ukrainian border. There was the information before that Ukraine started one more assault with a new vector towards all of those settlements. And we even have the confirmation from locals. They filmed the Striker armored vehicle of Ukrainian army with the triangle sign. So yet Russia is far away from controlling the Kursk region. And you know, in some of the villages there are some of the local babushkas who decided to stay. The Ukrainian soldiers stopped there asking if everything is okay with them, but babushkas say that everything is fine, and what is interesting that they speak Ukrainian, yes, Ukrainian language. So they ask Ukrainian soldiers to take them somewhere, but our guys say that they are fully booked with ammunition. So unfortunately there was no place for those babushkas who definitely speak Ukrainian. Our guys were surprised that they were speaking Ukrainian, and one of the babushkas say that yes, she is not Ukrainian, but she speaks Ukrainian. So yeah, actually being in a war zone is difficult for locals, but if they do not support the special military operation which Putin started against Ukraine, and if they behave normally, their life might look similar to what it was before, but again, Russian soldiers might hide in their homes. So obviously for them it's better to evacuate from their homes and to leave the battle area. As I've told you, the part of the Bryansk Oblast, Kursk Oblast and Belgorod were before the part of the Ukraine. Because of that, locals might speak Ukrainian. Some of the Russian sources are sharing those kind of the maps telling that the Ukrainian army is near Bobrava, but Ukrainian armed forces were spotted in Gyry. I think that Ukraine wouldn't attack with such a narrow line, because there is a huge risk for it to be cut by the Russian army, which is still presented in the region. Now, from what I see, the Russian propaganda tells that the Ukraine army suffers tremendous losses. The best of the best forces are now used for this offensive, and the Russian aviation totally annihilates that. That's why the decision to conduct this operation was completely wrong. It is their usual stuff, don't put attention on that. There are losses in every war, in any sort of the operation. But again, the enemy side has absolute tremendous losses compared to Ukraine, plus around 1,000 Russian troops were imprisoned by Ukraine. For the Russian propaganda channels or pro-Russian channels like, for example, Anatoly Shary, Ukraine loses everywhere. Then Russia takes the ground in Ukraine, or then Ukraine takes the ground in Russia. The Ukraine is always wrong, everything is because of Ukraine. Right, about the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, yesterday there was a huge fire inside the cooling tower. As we may understand from the name, those towers are used to cool down the water which comes from the nuclear power plant. They work in combination with the artificial lake, which is also used for cooling down of the reactor. So Russians say that Ukraine targeted this cooling tower. But it is one of the biggest bullshits, they say, because I know the construction of this cooling tower. And now let's check out what could potentially burn there. So here's, for example, the cooling tower of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Yes, it's just a cement construction with lots of the tubes for the cooling. And yes, you can go inside. From inside, it's almost the same as from outside. There you have just the water pipelines, that's it. And here you may see the space out there. It should be like that because the air should go inside to cool down the water tubes in this tower. It is basically a very big radiator made out of the cement, concrete and steel. There is basically nothing to burn inside, so Russia looks like a clowns with this provocation. What they did, and I'm sure about it, they put many of the car tires inside and ignited them. That's it. People associate those big towers with nuclear power plants, so Russia just shows that picture to the world saying that Ukraine is doing that. They just struck the nuclear power plant. Ukraine is evil. But actually, as you understand, it's complete bullshit. Yes, absolutely every cooling tower has the same construction, and this is not the smoke, this is the water vapor. The Russian air defense was working today in Kursk airfield, Moscow region, and some of the kabooms were recorded. For now, it's hard to say whether the Ukrainian drone strike was successful, but Moscow is not that close to the Ukrainian border. We may judge that even without ATACMS permission, Ukraine still might strike the Russian airfields, which are far away. Yes, obviously with ATACMS, the effectiveness of those strikes would be much better. The Russian activist went to one of the squares of Kazan city, Russia, to collect some of the funds for the humanitarian support of the people who were displaced from their homes because of the war. But just a few minutes later, the guy was arrested by the Russian police. On the way to police station, he said that his idea was just to collect the funds to help those who need those. But the Russian police doesn't really care, and Putin already helped those people. He ordered to allocate $100 per each family. It should cover all of the needs. Right, and now let's go to the military map update in Ukraine, because we know that Russia doesn't want to get their forces out from the east, for example. So for the last 24 hours, we have the update in Toretsk and New York. Unfortunately, Russia took more ground in this place. Yesterday, today, once again. And you may see that the fight is ongoing in the Toretsk city itself. But the risk for Ukrainian army encirclement between New York and Pivdena villages doesn't exist any longer. This bottleneck is no longer a bottleneck, and this area itself is kind of small, so Ukrainian army may leave this position at any moment. I just hope that the Kursk operation may somehow influence the situation in Ukrainian front lines. And now, my friends, please don't forget to press your huge like to this video. By doing so, you help me a lot. I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.